Back again for another episode of Diabetes Reversal Explained. I want to know, is there anybody here this morning that had 8 grams or more of fiber for breakfast? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess 2 hands means 2. Okay, you hear that? He had a bowl of oatmeal. No flakes. Bran flakes with blueberries and strawberries and... Okay, and apples. Slice of toast. Okay, so he did well. If you have 8 or more grams of fiber for your breakfast, you're 1/3 of the way there. If you did like I did, I had a bowl of oatmeal, I had craisins on top. And let's see, what else did I have? I had a bowl of fruit. So I made about my 8 grams this morning. Typically, I would put some nuts or something like that on it to go with it. Oh, I did have nuts. I had nuts in the room. We got a wonderful bag of deluxe nuts. You know, when you go to a hotel room, don't go unprepared. Have some kind of snacky just in case, you know. So we had the snackies anyway. But before breakfast, I had some nuts. So anyway, so I guess I have my 12 grams of fiber in. I'm well on the way. How many people walked after breakfast this morning? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A whole bunch of them. Give yourself a hand and a pat on the back. You're learning. Okay. And how many people yesterday drank their 8 to 10 glasses of water? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a bunch of you again. Great job. So that's exciting. And did anybody outside of this class, outside the time you did burst training in the class, did anybody do any other burst training? Yes. Oh, yes, and another one here. Great, and there's more hands over here. Good job, guys. You're well on your way. Now, one of the things that happens with diabetes reversal, you will soon learn, is, well, that's part of today's lecture. I can't give that out now.
Not yet. It's so hard for him not to just talk.
Well,
I love you.
It's just exciting stuff. I'm really a very quiet person until it comes to diabetes. And what God has done, He's just laid a burden on my heart to help the people that are suffering from diabetes. It is such a devastating disease. And I've worked for years in healthcare, and we've saved many lives. We've seen people, pull people back from the brink of death and whatever else in the kind of jobs we do. But so much of the time, you see people come in and there's this dearth of knowledge. Or if they have the knowledge, they just don't care. And why not help the people who can be helped? That's you. If you're seeking after knowledge, those are the people that you can help. And so
sometimes, though, it's very difficult because they don't have support in their families. Unless the families come through this together, they don't understand why all of a sudden they can't have all the things that they're used to having, and they're shifting to different foods that's foreign to the rest of the family. So we really encourage the families to come through the programs. And this is something, we were at the CDC it wasn't the CDC, but it was a conference that they sponsored, and they asked us to present a poster on the work that we were doing in our county. We even had the federal government come down and meet with our group because they said, you're doing something different in your county that's not happening everywhere else. But anyway, so they came to learn. But Steve was eating at the table where the head of the
Diabetes Educators CDE, she was the head of the CDE program.
And one of the things that they were real adamant about at that time is that only if you had a diagnosis of diabetes or prediabetes, you could come through their programs. Otherwise, nobody else was allowed to come.
I think...
Okay, correct me.
Okay.
See, it goes both ways.
Locations have been transpired here. We were actually in Gatlinburg for that particular meeting.
We were in Atlanta, my dear. Okay, we were somewhere in the U.S.
We were in Atlanta for the poster presentation, but the conversation she's talking about happened with the head of the Diabetes Translation Division of the CDC in Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
Okay.
And
I stand corrected.
Anyway, one of the things that I was saying, the diabetes prevention program, they used to say you had to have more than 50% of the people that attended that had to have a diagnosis of prediabetes. And I told them, I got down on my knees beside the lady and I said, this is not right. I said, I want the family members there. I want the spouse there. I want the children there. I want the close friends there. Everybody that I can get in that network of people. The more people you can involve in this education, the more successful you are going to be in actually achieving the diabetes reversal. And a year later, we were back in Gatlinburg for another meeting. The head of that department stood up again, and she said, folks, we are listening to what you're saying. She said, we have changed our regulation. She didn't point to me. She didn't talk to me directly. But she said, we are listening, and we have changed our requirement. We now say a third. So for every person that's in the program, you can have 2 other family members in the program. So right. with the CDC, that's the important thing. So
okay, that was a sidebar, guys.
I won't do this again.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what we're going to talk about today is augmenting diabetes reversal. And augmenting means to add something to. So we've talked about some of the basics. We've talked about carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So now we're going to talk about other things that we can add to this to make it even more effective. And ye shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water. And what's the next thing say? Read it with me. And I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. What a gem right there in the middle of the scriptures. God promises, I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. I think it's time for us to have a prayer, don't you? Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, I just rejoice when I hear these promises that you've given us in your word, that you are going to heal your people. You will bless our bread and our water, and you will take sickness away. And so I pray that you will extend that blessing to everybody that's in the hearing of this voice. In Jesus' name, amen.
So today, our learning objectives, thank you. We want you to be able to define a therapeutic intervention and identify 2 ways to maintain your lifestyle while eating out. Is that important? Verbalize, yes, it can be very difficult. Verbalize the optimal frequency for exercise. Describe the voice test to know if you are doing your exercise correctly. And describe 3 ways to improve sleep effectiveness and identify if you may be at risk for food addiction. Okay, it sounds like a lot of stuff to cover, but we're going to press on. It will be interesting. Now remember, this program is for educational purposes only. We want to teach you, we want to give you the information, give you the tools, but you make sure and talk with your physician before you do anything. Rachel is a lady that came to one of our first seminars, and we learned a really fun thing from her we were shocked about as nurses. We have taken care of diabetics for years and dealt with this problem. But when she came to the seminar, she and her husband came together, and they sat right down front. She was very quiet. She never said anything to us for the original 6 weeks of the program. But when she came back for one of the follow-up programs, she handed us a letter. She said, "I don't talk, but I want you to know my story." For 2 years, she had had such terrible neuropathy pain. Now, when a person with diabetes gets neuropathy, sometimes they have no feeling whatsoever, and other times they get intense pain. Well, hers was the intense pain. It was so bad that she had not been out of her home for 2 years except to get food or to go to the doctor. She had a beautiful home in the country and a garden, and she loved to garden. She had chickens she loved to care for. For 2 years, she had not been able to do any of that. But she heard about the program, and so she decided to come. Her beginning A1C was 7.3. Her triglycerides were...
She's fine.
Her triglycerides were 680, cholesterol 286. Her insulin resistance was 20.6. What should it be?
2 or less.
2 or less. She was very sick.
If you have an insulin resistance of 4 or more, you're high risk for diabetes. 8 or more, certainly that's when the diabetes diagnosis comes, but she was extremely insulin resistant.
And remember, for those that haven't been here at all of the sessions, insulin resistance is when your cells are so gummed up that when insulin comes to open the doors to move the sugar in, out of the bloodstream into the cells where you can burn it for energy, they are so gummed up that insulin can't do its work. And so it takes more and more insulin. You get in this vicious cycle. And so the way to get over insulin resistance is we have to make the cells hungry again. They have to get the gum out of the lock so that insulin can do its work. So this lady was very insulin resistant. You can have it tested, or if you're a Caucasian person, you can do a quick and dirty. But the way that you really need to do it is you need to have a HOMA-IR done, which, write it down. It's capital letters, HOMA-IR, HOMA-IR. And you go to your physician. If you're regular scheduled appointment, go to your physician and get them to draw a fasting glucose and a fasting insulin level. Most of your physicians may not know about this. We learned about it from Dr. Guthrie just a few years back. But the HOMA-IR is something that measured insulin resistance. So you get your fasting glucose, fasting insulin level, and when you get your results, you can sit down to your computer or your physician can do it, and you simply type in HOMA-IR calculator.
So one of the things that happens when people go down the road of diabetes reversal for 13 and a half years, before you get the diagnosis on average, you're becoming more and more insulin resistant. And usually people don't, practitioners, because of insurance reimbursement purposes primarily, usually practitioners don't test for your insulin resistance until you have an elevated blood sugar. But by that time, it's almost irrelevant to test for insulin resistance because they know you're insulin resistant. Your blood sugars are elevated. But if you have a HOMA-IR done, it's very predictive of how much insulin resistance you have. And so you can tell years ahead of time if you're going down the route to getting diabetes. And so those people that have studied deeply, endocrinologists or others, they will sometimes order the HOMA-IR. Diabetes educators know about this, but oftentimes a general practitioner is not aware of that because that's just not something he does every day. It's no problem. He just doesn't know that. So the HOMA-IR is just a wonderful indicator, though, a long time in advance of being able to tell if you're insulin resistant. One question right there.
Coding for reimbursement. She's saying that there is a code for the test.
Right.
Right.
Okay, she's given us a code now for the just a minute. I want you to repeat it. No, tell them here.
It's E88.81 is a billable specific ICD-10 code that can be used to indicate a diagnosis for reimbursement purposes. The 2022 edition of the ICD-10 CM E88.81 became effective October 20.
Thank you very much. That's the first I heard about that. So, it's good to know that it's now in the 2022 coding book. So that means you can get reimbursement for it.
But you just enter your results in, your fasting insulin, fasting blood sugar in the calculator, and it will give you an insulin resistant score. And you want it to be 2 or less. Okay, I'm going to take one more question, and then we need to move ahead. Yes?
Between the two, the A1C or the HOMA
IR.
better?
Okay, she's asking between getting an A1C done and this HOMA IR. An A1C, the physicians will do an A1C much easier. If your A1C returns normal, which should be 5.2 or less, remember, eye damage starts at 5.2. If it's just starting to go up, if you're getting a little belly fat right here, getting the HOMA IR done will tell you your insulin resistance. Okay? Your A1C may still be normal or just barely, but you may have an insulin resistance that's quite elevated. And this gives you a tool to know you need to be working on it to get it down. Okay, let's move ahead. No, the A1C, she's saying, what's the difference? We mentioned 5.2 versus 2. 5.2 is the A1C. You want your A1C to be less than 5.2. The insulin resistance, you want to be 2 or less. Okay, that's how locked the cells are. Okay, so from the letter that Rachel gave to us at the end of the 6th week, she said, I would not have believed the difference that this program made. I've tried all kinds of things, but I heard about the seminar, so my husband Jack and I decided to attend. I had doubts about losing weight, because I couldn't, or reversing diabetes, because I'd tried. But you were so encouraging and supportive, I just had to try. So I gave up my colas, sweets, bread. I ate mostly vegetables, and I started losing pounds. I lost pounds fast, she said. It was really worth the effort, and after a few more pounds, the terrible pain I was having in my legs stopped. And when Steve and I got to that part of the letter, we turned to each other and we said,
That's not supposed to happen.
No. We had been taught as nurses, and for years we'd cared for diabetic patients. Once they got neuropathy pain, they had it. And we told them, you'll have this for the rest of your life. All you can do is take medicines to try to control the pain. Here she said, it stopped. I was able to start walking and working in the garden again. So at the end of the seminar and at her follow-up, her A1C was down to 6.3. Her triglycerides were down to 220, cholesterol to 252. I told you she raised chickens, and she said, I'm not giving up my eggs. Okay. Her insulin resistance was down to 5.9. Her weight was down to 169, and she was off of all her medications, which included medication for acid reflux. And she said that as she changed her diet, she started doing better. Her acid reflux went away. So her doctor took her off of all that. What a wonderful story. We were so grateful for what she shared with us. So we're going to talk here first about interventions.
American College of Lifestyle Medicine, about 2 years ago now, published their paper, which was a position paper on type 2 diabetes reversal. And basically what they were saying is not only is type 2 diabetes reversal possible, but it should be the first approach that is taken. When a person gets type 2 diabetes, instead of first giving them medicine, what we need to do is we need to educate them and let them adopt lifestyle changes, because the sooner you do this after you get the diagnosis of diabetes, the more successful people are. And so what they discovered is there's some things that work and there's some approaches that don't work at all. And so the approaches that work best, they call therapeutic approaches. And in a therapeutic approach, more than 50% of the people in the study typically will reverse their diabetes. And in a subtherapeutic approach, it's usually less than 50% will have positive results. So then there are
Appropriate dosage.
Yes, that's where I'm going. There's this idea of appropriate dosage. Now, if you have a headache and you go to the doctor and he says, well, I want you to take an 81 milligram aspirin, is that going to relieve your headache? Most likely not, because it's a subtherapeutic dose. It's not a big enough dose to have the therapeutic effect. Well, the doctors that are talking about lifestyle medicine talk about lifestyle interventions the same way. Are you taking the dosage or the intervention in appropriate dosage, they say. This is just the way they think, so understand that. So is that an appropriate dosage? So if you took 650 milligrams of aspirin, would it relieve your headache? Yes, more than likely it would. So the same holds true with a lifestyle intervention. If you've learned that a whole food plant-based diet will reverse type 2 diabetes, and you add 1 salad a day to your regime, are you going to reverse your diabetes? More than likely not. More than likely not. So what you need to do is you actually need to take a larger dosage. So one of the things they're saying is they are saying virtually 100% of true type 2 diabetes is reversible, especially if you catch it early on, and you take the interventions in the appropriate dosage. So it's very important. Now, a therapeutic dose. There are 2 therapeutic interventions that work. Only 2 that we know of so far. So in your diabetes reversal plan, you need to include one of these 2 interventions. One is doing a severe calorie restriction. We're talking 800 calories a day or less for a period of 8 weeks, and follow that by a healthy diabetes reversal type diet. Or you can do 1,150 calories for 14 weeks or more. You decide how long you want to be hungry for. And they say that surprisingly, people are very willing to do this. Why are they willing to do this? It's because of the goal. If they know that they can reverse diabetes, they are happy to do it. I want to encourage you to be careful about this first intervention, though, because severe calorie restriction has been known to cause problems such as, you can have severe electrolyte imbalances and other problems that happen because you're just not getting enough nutrition. And so you need to do it under the direct supervision of your doctor. Make sure your doctor's informed and he's monitoring you at regular intervals to make sure that you're not getting in trouble. So that is the first intervention. Is it a good intervention? Yes, it is a very good intervention, and it's one that is showing amazing results in the scientific studies, but take caution. The other one is a whole food plant-based diet. Now, on the first intervention, you're very restricted in how much you can eat. Typically, these people will drink about 600 calories a day of a milkshake type product, and then they have 200 calories a day in salads. And that's what they eat for 8 weeks. And the other intervention, what they do is they do whole food plant-based diet. You can eat as much as you want, but you can't have anything that's refined. It has to be a whole food. So there's no refined oil, there's no refined sugar, there's no refined grains. It has to be whole food, plant-based. And you go on that, and the process takes just a little bit longer. The end result is very good. Very good. And there are 2 other ways to reversal. One of those is bariatric surgery. And of course, we've known about this for more than 40 years now. So you can have stomach stapling or lap band or something like that, and your diabetes will go away within just a few weeks. Or the other way that you hear about when you look online, they talk about low-carb, high-protein diet, going a keto diet to going keto to reverse your diabetes. I would discourage everybody with diabetes from going that route. And the reason why we covered yesterday, remember, that kind of diet decreases your blood flow by 40%. So it puts you at high risk for strokes and cardiovascular events and other such things. And I'd far rather that you survive a diabetes reversal regime than die in the process. And also the high fat, saturated fat in the liver, it attacks the beta cells and causes beta cell death. So you're making your diabetes worse. You're causing increased insulin resistance. Now, some of the claims are that you will decrease insulin resistance, but using the low carb, the keto method. But I can't support it. I don't see it in the science. So there's your 2 therapeutic interventions. Now, the most important intervention of all for reversing your diabetes is simply changing what you eat. We say that nutrition, your diet, is the new super pill. It's your key to long-term health. And so it'll give you the greatest impact on your reversal. And what you need to do is you need to eat high nutrient foods. We're going to talk about this afternoon. Yes, this afternoon. High nutrient foods are extremely important for multiple reasons. And because you're wanting to eat lower calorie foods, gravitate toward those foods that are higher in water content. You know, lettuce, high in water content. What are other foods you can think about high in water content? Oh yes, celery. Okay, I heard that one. That came through clear.
Cucumber.
Melons. Yes, good. Apples. Yes. Anything that's sort of juicy kind of thing like that, you know, when you bite into it, those are higher in water content as opposed to something like crackers, you know, hardtack, whatever, biscuits, etc. Okay, so those are foods that are higher in water contact. Another thing we have a need to chew. Now, how long do people need to chew?
At least for 30 minutes. Yes.
20 to 30 minutes. You're not going to be done eating. I don't care what you're eating, but if you don't have something to chew on for a few minutes, you're just not going to be satisfied, right? And so you need foods that you can chew on. So in the Middle East, I remember I went over to Beirut, Lebanon. I went to Middle East College. Some of you may know about Middle East College. It's affiliated with Loma Linda University, and my college credits would transfer, so it just was an ideal setting. Plus, my sister was working over there in the Middle East Union offices, and she offered me free lodging. What more could you want? And so I said, hey, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm going. So I went over there, and we got a lunch invite. So she cautioned me. She said, now, in this culture, people eat very slowly. And your hostess will be alarmed if she sees an empty plate. So you need to eat very slowly. And I was one of these typical American young men. I just, if you put the food in front of me, I inhaled it about three bites or whatever, it was gone. But anyway, so I said, okay, I'll do my best. And we went over there and I started eating this meal. Delicious food. Oh, I just love Middle Eastern food. But 15 minutes down the road, my plate was empty. Everybody else's plate, still pretty full. And the hostess looked over. Oh, Steve's plate is empty. Here, pass him some of this, pass him some of this, pass him some of this. And she was keyed on me for the rest of the meal. And so I took a second plate full, and I very slowly ate the second plate full. And I left a little bit on the side. In about 20 minutes, my plate was pretty much empty. And then she's trying to pass me more stuff. And I'm saying, no, I'm full. Well, I was sitting on a wooden chair. An hour and a half later, they were just beginning to wind down. Oh, they would talk and oh, this tastes so good. You know, they were doing things like that and whatever else. I mean, but the dinner conversation was more important than the food on the plate. I was there to eat. They were there to have social hour or two. And an hour and a half later, they pulled out the dry roasted watermelon seeds. Have you ever eaten unhulled dry roasted watermelon seeds? What you do is you put them in your mouth slowly while you chomp like a squirrel, and then you split the seed that way, and then you can spit out the hulls and chew the little thing that's left. It's not much. But they did that for about a half an hour, and after they'd done that for a half an hour, they finally brought out dessert. Well, I'm ready for supper by the time they brought out dessert. I tell you what, by the time I came back to the States a few months later, I could eat slowly. And I would go into the dining hall at Southern Adventist University, and I would sit there and I would eat my meal, and everybody else around me is scarfing their stuff down, and they're grabbing their trays, and they're going to do whatever else, and I'm sitting here looking, where did they all go?
So he got over eating slowly.
But chewing is very important. And so if you have to, guys, go find you some dry roasted watermelon seeds. Get you something to chew on that's not many calories and keep at it. Remember what your goal is. Our goal is to lose weight, but you need to satisfy the urge. I don't want people going around hungry. So, you know, I told you the story of Tommy and how Tommy brought his family into one of our programs. But one of the things he told them that day, he says, look at me. He says, I've lost 75 pounds and I haven't missed a meal. He wasn't going hungry at all. He was enjoying his food, but in 6 months he had lost 75 pounds. So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that do food prep, take a few minutes and make your food look good. Presentation is half the battle. If it looks good, you're going to enjoy it a whole lot more. If you're the only one that's sitting at the table, but you make it look good, you're going to enjoy it a whole lot more. So garnish it a little bit or serve it up very nicely. You know what they do in the restaurants? There's that little squiggly they put over your dessert or whatever it is, just to make it look nice. And, that's half the battle. So take the time to do that. That will help us well. And if you enjoy your food more and you take your time eating, you'll probably eat less calories. Okay? Let's move on.
Eating out. How do we manage to eat out? Well, we need to look for more healthful options. Look for heart healthy. And a lot of the menus now will have a little heart on it, like showing that it's heart healthy. Also, look for vegetarian options. But you can also order from the sides, and you can make a vegetable plate from the sides. Use steamed instead of fried if possible. Get a baked potato instead of fries. Ask them to put the dressing on the side. Replace the meat with mushrooms or vegetables. Get them to put beans instead of the meat. And a lot of them will do it. We have had several experiences when we've been on the road that there was absolutely nothing on the menu that we felt we could eat. We couldn't combine anything to come up with something that would satisfy. So we just simply asked to talk to the chef. And one place down in Florida, the chef came out. What's the problem? What's the problem? Well, can we get something that's plants instead of meat? Oh, well, you can substitute. And he went through the whole menu saying all the things he could do for us. So he ordered one thing and I ordered something else, and then we eat half and we trade plates and we get variety that way. But some of our neatest, most delicious meals we have had has simply been when we've talked to the chef, and they have been over backwards. So we were sharing this experience in Benton, Tennessee, where we recently completed a seminar, and one of the ladies spoke up and she said, well, we don't have any chefs in our town. She said, I challenge you. You go to, there are 2 restaurants. She said, you go to the restaurants and you see what you can find to eat. So we took the challenge. The next week we came early and we went to one of the local restaurants, and we go in and we look at the menu, and it's a little limiting. And so they were very willing to give us a baked potato instead of the mashed potatoes. The only choice, they had green beans, but those had meat in them, and they had greens, and that had meat. And so they had the fried okra. We got the fried okra. We got a salad. Their salad consisted of a bed of lettuce, chopped tomatoes, and chopped onions. Well, I don't normally eat raw onions. They really do a number on my tummy. But you know what? I ate those onions, and they were delicious. We were hungry because with it being about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we had only eaten breakfast. We wanted to make sure that we were good and hungry for our meal. Anyway, and there was one other thing that I think we got, but we were able to put together a meal. So we took pictures of it. And when we got there that night, we walked in, everybody was crowding around us. What'd you have? What'd you have?
I'm not talking, I said. Not talking.
And so he didn't until after the meeting started, and he showed them pictures of what we were able to do. And they were satisfied that, yes, you can find something, even if you have to eat raw onions.
So, you just have to try, guys. You have to try. And remember, though, it's not just eating out that really determines. For most of us eat most of our meals where?
At home.
At home. So what you do at home is going to make the biggest difference for your diabetes reversal. And you have the biggest control on that. Now, exercise is the second most important intervention that you can do. Now, typically what happens, people will start working on diet, and they will realize blood sugar is coming down, blood pressure coming down, a lot of the numbers are getting better, and health is improving, energy levels are going up, but they'll get to a certain point and they'll plateau there. And they won't be able to get beyond that. And what we found is it actually takes a combination of a therapeutic and a subtherapeutic intervention in order to be able to reverse. Now, there are people that have done it with exercise alone. And Steve, is he still here?
I think he
He stepped out. He told me he was going to have to start walking toward Oregon today. But he came to the first part of the meeting. Anyway, the gentleman that talked to us yesterday was able to reverse through exercise alone. 7.8% of people can do it through exercise alone. So that's a subtherapeutic intervention. It helps some, but...
He just came in the door.
Oh, he just came in again. Oh, there he is. Okay. Yes, Yeah, he was able to do it through exercise alone, but most people cannot. And so, but if you combine exercise with diet, that will get you beyond the plateau. And invariably, it's the people that start walking 20 minutes after every meal. Those are the first ones, I'll tell you, that'll reverse. Before the end of the program, much of the time, their doctor has already been reducing their medicines. Within 6 months, 3 months, they're completely off medicines and doing fine. Yes, question?
Our culture is to have a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack and a bedtime snack.
Yes, our culture is to have all of these extra snacks in between. But here's the thing. When you eat 50 grams or more of fiber provides satiety. And you won't be hungry. So if you're not hungry, what do? You don't eat. You simply don't eat if you're not hungry. So we discourage people eating in between meals. We're going to talk about that tomorrow morning, I believe it is. Yes, we're going to talk about that tomorrow morning. Because eating in between meals throws all kinds of hormonal switches in your body, and it just gets you all out of kilter. Yes, that's a good word. So anyway,
How much exercise do we need?
so let's talk about how much exercise you need. The rules depends on who you look at, whether you're looking at the World Health Organization's chart or looking at the CDC's chart. But the recommendation is we need at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week per minimum. And other ones will say, well, you need 300 minutes of moderate exercise a week or 150 minutes of vigorous exercise a week. Well, I Googled and said, how much is too much exercise? No one seems to know the answer to that question. They say, it's hard to get too much exercise. We were built for exercise. So we have minimums, but we don't have a maximum. So anyway, let's go for the minimum. Let's go for the maximum, whatever. Get as much as you can get. And exercise frequency. I talked to Dr. Harrell Meyer, who's an exercise physiologist, and he said one episode of exercise a week will give you very little benefit and you won't feel good. If you do 5 episodes of exercise a week, you will start to feel good. It will make that kind of difference in your life. You do 6 episodes a week, and that's optimal. 5 or 6 a week is optimal. And he says you do 7 days a week, you lose all benefit. Yes, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath. It's built into our physiology. And so we need that 1 day of rest. And so let's do the appropriate lifestyle dosing. 5 to 6 days of exercise a week is optimal. And then plan exercise into your lifestyle. There are lots of experts have studied those people that live 100 years or more. And
what they found is those people don't exercise. And we say, oh, cool, we finally got, no. The difference is they build it into their lifestyle. When they're looking at the people over in Croatia or wherever it was, they're climbing steps, or they're going up on the mountainside to work, or
they're kneading the bread, or they're doing all kinds of manual stuff. Question back here.
Yeah. You said for the last slide that you're supposed to not exercise for 1 day a week. Well, earlier you told us we should exercise after we eat for 20 minutes.
Yes, that's moderate exercise. That's like a walk, but that's not like the burst training or whatever, the hard workouts. So it would still be important to walk after your meals, but that's not the kind of exercise I was talking about there. Okay? That's a moderate walk. You do not want to do a vigorous walk right after the meal. It's a moderate pace.
Thank you for asking that.
Yes.
She was saying, the one time we're saying walk after every meal, and the next we're saying don't exercise for 1 day. We're talking about the intense exercise that we want to do, those burst exercise that Steve's been doing with us. Well, that's what we're talking about here. And so, yes, we want to plan exercise in, but there is something else, as Steve says, failing to plan, we're going to get what we got, if you fail to plan, you've planned to fail. And so have a good test. Have a good plan. Now, voice test. How do you know if you're doing adequate exercise? How do you know what moderate exercise is and what intense exercise is? And the answer to that is answered easily by a simple little voice test. So if you are doing light exercise, you can talk comfortably. Okay? If you are doing moderate exercise, you can talk, but you cannot sing.
There's just not enough air to make it sing. And then if you're doing vigorous exercise, you can gasp out a few words, but, kind of thing.
So there you have the voice test.
And it's relatively accurate. Now, that was one of your learning objectives for today, so be sure and key that one in. Yes, ma'am?
Does the hour have to be all at one time?
Does the hour have to be all at one time? No, actually, it can be additive. And it's actually very advantageous if we do not go long periods where we're just sitting. A lot of us have desk jobs. We sit in front of the computer for hours. You shouldn't do that. They have people that'll do regular exercise routines, but they sit for 8 hours a day in front of a computer screen. They can't reverse their diabetes because of the long periods of sedentary activity. So what can you do about that? Get up every 30 minutes. Stand up from your desk every 30 minutes, walk around the desk a couple times, and then sit back down. Carry your email across the office instead of just emailing it. Walk to the bathroom and back. Go get you a drink of water on the way so you have to go again. It'll help you meet your 8 to 10 glasses, but it'll help you achieve your exercise needs. And so, yes, the exercise, those little bits of exercise during the day, the getting up and the moving every 30 minutes, actually add up and will add to your cumulative effect of exercise. Now, what we've been doing here in the class twice a day, we're doing about 4 to 5 reps of our burst training. Does that help? Yes, because it's additive during the course of the day. So if you can't do it all in one setting, but you can do it in 2 settings a day, do it in 2 settings a day. That'll be fine. That's good. Okay? Now, we want to talk about how to improve insulin resistance. What can we add to our diabetes reversal program that will help us improve insulin resistance? Well, we've learned that weight loss is very important, and we've learned how to make weight loss easier. And then we've learned the bit of diet, and now we come down to exercise. So we always need continued improvement when we adding interventions in. So it is, like I was just saying a few minutes ago, it is very necessary for us to add in exercise to our reversal regime to get us over the plateau and help us to get where we need to be. Now, intense exercise is very important, especially even if we're older folks. The intense exercise is more important than the moderate. And why is that? Well, it's because when you engage in intense exercise, it causes you to generate more mitochondria in your cell. Those are the furnaces. So you start building more furnaces in the cell so you can produce more energy, and that helps improve your basal metabolism rate and steers you away from long-term diabetic problems. So the intense exercise is very important in the long term, simply because instead of having one furnace in the cell, you have many more. Now, for those of you that are African American heritage, the people with African American heritage have a very distinct advantage over Caucasians because they have many more mitochondria in their cells. It's just a genetic thing. And, but it means that for you, exercise will be more important. So you need to engage in physical exercise because that's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your reversal buck. Absolutely not. God created you special. God created you special just the way you are. But you have more mitochondria in your cells. You have energy that white people don't have because you have been given that gift. So go figure. It's just the way God made us. And God is not colorblind, guys. He wants every color on the planet in His heaven. Amen. And one of the things I appreciate so much about some churches is multicultural churches. We're learning to get together down here so we can get together up there. We need to value each person's individual gifts. We all have gifts, and every one of us is very special. So anyway, timing of exercise. Oh, it's up there.
Yes, I just moved it.
Okay.
So every cell has a cupboard, and it's really, really important, like this burst exercise that we've been talking about, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that if we do this really intense exercise and then we sit down and eat a big meal, it's going to resupply all that energy back into the cells. But if we'll wait and not do it, not follow that exercise with a big meal, it doesn't refill that cupboard as quickly. And so the vigorous exercise burns the fuel in the furnace, and when it does that, the reserve is lowered, and so that helps to decrease that insulin resistance, those locked cells. It gets some of that energy out of the cells. But the cells have that metabolic memory. They know how much energy they had, and so they want to reach out there and grab it and refill that energy. So that's why we don't want to eat for 2 hours after we've done that real vigorous burst exercise. Also, the repeated episodes. When he does it in the afternoon or here at the end of our session, he'll do a burst and then we rest for 1 to 2 minutes. We catch our breath and we do another burst of the exercise. That helps to lower that, use up that insulin resistance, that energy that's locking up the cells, and it helps to open them. It increases the burn rate, which helps, I think we're going to mention here in a minute, that it burns this energy, this fat, for up to 76 hours. It's wonderful.
Okay, when you don't have adequate exercise, it raises your risk of type 2 diabetes. So find the kind of exercise that you like to do and get busy doing it. Yes, sir, back in the back.
So does that do not eat at all for 2 hours after vigorous exercise?
Okay, let's talk. Yeah, he says, does that mean not at all after exercise? Here's the deal. Because of the metabolic memory in the cell, when you do that vigorous exercise, especially the burst exercise, what it does is it burns up what's in the cell. But because the cell has a memory, it tries to reach out and grab and refill real quickly, like Harrell was saying. And but if you don't eat for 2 hours afterward, it will not refill that reserve back to where it was. And then it establishes a new memory for the cell. And so you've decreased the amount of stuff in your storage capacity. That means you've decreased your insulin resistance. You're driving your diabetes in reverse. And so the answer is you shouldn't eat anything, ideally. But we live in a real world. I would rather you exercise and then eat than
not
exercise. Okay, so the exercise is really important. Question here.
I'm talking here about specifically a situation of diabetes or insulin resistance that I want to reverse. People not on that situation, they are already on the normal range, then would it be good to replenish that reserve, which is in a desirable level?
Yes, it would be. I mean, if you don't have diabetes, you're not trying to reverse the diabetes, then it becomes sort of irrelevant. Okay? But if you're trying to reverse the diabetes, if you're trying to decrease your insulin resistance, if you're trying to lose weight, then it is important. These things would be important. So it's a very good observation. Yeah, it's not always applicable to a normal individual, but we're not normal.
80% of us are not normal.
That's right. Back in the back. Is it the same principle if you have type 1? Here's the thing about type 1. Type 1 is a completely different disease. You can have type 1 and type 2. Insulin resistance is a problem in people with type 1. And in fact, people with type 1, if people with type 1 will go with whole food plant-based diet, they will typically, instead of having blood sugars that go like this, they will have blood sugars that go more, that are moderated. They're more even, and they will decrease their insulin needs typically by an average of about 40%. We had one individual with type 1 out in Idaho that came to our program, and he was taking 116 units of insulin a day, and his sugars were all over the map. But he changed his lifestyle. He decreased his insulin needs to 26 units a day. Made a huge difference in how he felt. And but yes, you can have both type 1 and type 2. And but insulin resistance, lowering the insulin resistance is key for whether you have both, either type 1 or type 2. Because you want the insulin to be effective, to do its work. And this is how you make it happen.
So the benefits of exercise is it helps us to control our blood sugar. It helps us with weight loss. It lowers blood pressure, and that's important for a lot of people. They will start having elevated blood pressure before they ever get a diagnosis of diabetes. It also reduces nerve damage. It reduces the heart attack risk, and it raises good cholesterol and lowers bad, and it also helps you have a better attitude when you can get out and exercise and you do these things that you enjoy. And part of what we want to do, in addition to the moderate episodes of vigorous activity, the CDC recommends for older folks that we want to prevent muscle loss that comes just naturally with aging.
See, by the time you get 35 years of age or so, you start losing about half a pound of muscle mass a year. By the time you get 70, you have increased that loss to where you're losing 2 pounds of muscle mass a year. By the time a person is 75, the average person cannot bend over and pick up more than a gallon of milk off the floor. They've lost that much muscle mass. So the way that you prevent that is resistance training or lifting a few weights. It doesn't have to be much. Just find out what your capacity is. Go to 80, 90% of your capacity and do 8, 10 reps a couple times a week. It will preserve your muscle mass. And you see the muscle has a much higher metabolic rate than fat. So if you preserve your muscle mass, it preserves you from going down the diabetes road. The older we get, the more likely we are to develop diabetes. Why is that? It's because we lose muscle mass is one of the big reasons. And we are burning our metabolic rate at our metabolic rate drops because we have more fat on our body in proportion to our muscle. We lose the muscle mass.
So it's really important to work every area of the body. All the muscle groups throughout the body, work on those. So talking about burst training or interval training, that's what Steve has been doing with you. And if you look here, he's working really hard there. He's doing a burst. There he's relaxing. So that's what we want. We want the really intense and then back off.
And
but
remember,
make sure.
Remember, any form of exercise will do. Just find something you like doing and do it with gusto for that 30 seconds. We needed to practice that. So this part of the lecture is just review for you guys. So we're going to run through it fairly rapidly. Have the talk with your doctor. And then just remember that compared with
back up one.
Compared with treadmills and hour-long aerobic workouts, this helps you burn fat more efficiently and quickly, up to 9 times more efficiently, according to some studies. You do the vigorous exercise for 20 to 30 seconds, and you have to build up. So we typically start here in the classes with 20 seconds. At home, I do 30 seconds. 30 seconds, according to the literature, is the optimal amount. You don't have any additional benefit by trying to press it further. Just do 30 seconds of intense exercise and then rest 1 to 2 minutes.
Can you regain that muscle tone after you're 70?
She's asking, can you regain the muscle tone after you're 70? The answer is yes, but you have to work at it. Okay? Good health is intentional. Good health is intentional. You have to have a plan, and then you do the plan. Okay? After you've done your intense burst, you rest for 1 to 2 minutes until you catch your breath. You can time it. And one of the reasons I like 30 seconds and 1 minute is it's just easy for me to see on my wristwatch. 30 seconds and 1 minute, 30 seconds and 1 minute, whenever that. Anyway, you can follow me. So in the cell, you burn the glucose during that burst, and then you have to pull what's here in the reserve. You pull one of these reserve cans out, you throw that in the furnace, it gives you a quick burst, but you also send a signal to the liver that says, give up some of what you got. And so you're defatting the cell inside the cell itself, but you're also defatting the liver when you do these bursts. Plus, it changes your metabolic rate so you burn more during the week. So here's what it looks like. 10 repetitions, intense exercise, rest, intense exercise, rest, intense exercise and rest, and so on until you have done at least 10 of those. All right, mark your calendar. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the reason for that is you'll have excess fat burning, you've heard me say this already, up to 72 hours following your burst. And the benefits, burst training causes fat to be burned more efficiently, and you'll have muscle building, not muscle wasting. That's part of what you're doing here. But here's the key right here. You have increased sensitivity to insulin. What that means is you're driving diabetes in reverse. You're driving diabetes in reverse. And it helps increase lean muscle mass and improve cardiovascular health and gives you human growth hormone. And as you increase the levels of human growth hormone, what it does is it causes you to build muscle mass as well. Increased energy and reduced inflammation. The reduced inflammation we haven't talked much about, but this is extremely important for things like not only reversing diabetes, but lowering cancer risks and any other diseases that are related to inflammation. And there are a lot of them. Next one. Okay. Oh yeah, people are asking all the time, well, I don't know what to do for burst exercises. Well, I have a few little things that I really like that work well when people are standing in rows. But that, you're not limited. Any kind of exercise will do, but if you need more ideas, here's where to go. Google. Because Google knows everything. You remember that. Google knows everything. Just go to Google or you go to YouTube and you put in low impact burst training. Why do I say low impact burst training? It's because we're older individuals and we tend to get all shook up when we have to get real active. So, the low impact, instead of doing the jumping jack, then we do the no jump jacks. So that's the difference there. Okay.
There's a couple other things we're going to talk about real quickly. Sleep. What do we do with sleep? And then we're going to move into something else. We're going to talk about food addictions real briefly. So sleep deprivation, it affects 1 out of 2 people with diabetes, and it causes an elevated blood sugar. And also the increased insulin resistance interferes with our sleep. 1 in 4 people sleep less than 6 hours a night. 1 in 5 have the restless leg syndrome, which keeps them awake. A lot of people with diabetes have that. And then 1 in 4 also have obstructive sleep apnea, where they're having to use a CPAP or something, or they're waking up frequently, but they're waking themselves up because they stop breathing. And so that is a significant issue. And so we need to treat those problems if we have them, because it will help us with reversal. Now, there are some other things that we can do to augment our sleep. Adhering to a diet plan that works for you and helps you keep your sugar in control. That is really important. Also, getting regular exercise, keeping a regular sleep schedule. You need to go to bed at the same time every single day. You need to have your bedroom dark, turn off the LEDs, whatever, cover up the TV or the clock or whatever it is. And you also need to have it cool. They say the ideal temperature is 65 degrees. Pull out the wool blankets. It feels really good. I see over here, they would need their blankets. But, we need to have the room cool. We need to do these things, and it will help us immensely so that we will sleep better.
Now, as far as sleep disorders goes, I want to add just one other thing. They did a study on people with poor sleep habits. And they found out that there's one intervention that across the board helped the individuals tremendously, and that was vigorous exercise 4 or more times a week. If you have poor sleep habits, start doing your vigorous exercise sessions at least 4 or more times a week. And according to the scientific study, I think it was over 90% of the individuals improved their sleep from poor to good.
That's good information. All right, food addictions. Many people who struggle with type 2 diabetes may also be struggling with food addictions. We're going to talk about just a few things here, and then we're going to give you a quiz real quickly. So turn your green sheet over to the back side if you have one. Number it 1 to 14, so you'll have that done. And then when we get there, we can go through the questions real quickly.
You know, an addiction is something that is... It's a physiological reaction that occurs in the brain. When you stimulate a portion of the brain called the ventral tegmental area and into the prefrontal cortex, which is the main front portion of the brain, you will release dopamine, and this dopamine gives you a good feeling. And so you keep coming back and repeating the behaviors because it makes you feel good. Well, what are some of the things that cause dopamine to be released? Take, for instance, drinking a glass of water when you're thirsty. It causes a release of dopamine in the brain and it feels good. So next time you're thirsty, what do? Another thing is eating a meal. Eating a meal increases the dopamine in the brain and it feels good, so you do it again. Sex increases the dopamine in the brain, so people keep going back. That's why there's so many of us in the room. And, you know, there are a lot of things that cause this. Well, of course, we know that drugs cause the reaction. One of the things that happens when we start repeating these behaviors, sometimes there are some behaviors that cause a higher dopamine release than others, and that's one of the reasons why people become drug addicted, is because the higher release caused by the drugs. But there are also certain foods. Now, typically food gives you a normal response, but when you're eating refined foods, typically sugars, foods that are high in fat and salt, they will cause some people to have an increased dopamine release in the brain. And over a period of time, the brain recognizes there's too much dopamine that is being released when this person does this activity, so you develop tolerance. And then in order to get the same buzz, you keep coming back trying to get it, but you have to eat more. You have to eat more of the stuff. And then people learn that if I eat this faster, then I get that kind of reaction as well. So they begin changing behaviors and they become socially withdrawn and they start squirreling things away and they eat in secret. And sometimes they will steal the food, or they'll squirrel it away, or whatever. They'll sometimes even steal from other people, do all these kind of behaviors, and it's simply because of their of this dopamine reaction that's happening in the brain that we call addiction. And it's arguable at some levels that it's a problem, but those people that have had major problems in this area, it's very real.
So an addiction is a very complex condition, and we are not trying to talk about and explain all of that. We're just briefly going to touch on this and see if this might help you if you're really struggling in this area. But it's a brain disease that is manifested by compulsive substance use despite harmful consequences. People with addiction, severe substance use disorder, have an intense focus on using a certain substance, such as alcohol or drugs, to the point that it takes over their life. They keep using it even when they know it will give them problems. Addicted persons have distorted thinking, behavior, and body functions. Changes in the brain's wiring is what cause people to have these intense cravings for the drug or the food, and makes it really hard to stop using it. Now, Steve has already talked about this pathway that we get in the brain. But this intense want is the same as craving. And so here's the pathway that he talked about, talking about the cortex and the pathway here. Here is the tolerance, where it takes more and more of this for us to get the same effect. And then food addictions are like cocaine or meth. It involves this release of dopamine, this thing that gives us pleasure. So overeating suppresses the expression of the hormones that govern hunger and eating patterns. And so we get in this real vicious cycle, and it allows the addiction to control us. So other factors here, he mentioned the speed and also the intensity of the dopamine release. So the symptoms of this are...
You'll have impaired control, you have cravings, and failed attempts to control the substance abuse. You know that it's doing you wrong, bad. It's a risky use. The substance is used in, maybe you're overweight, but you just can't seem to stop. You do it anyway. And it causes social problems and withdrawals, which I already mentioned, and it causes the problem of tolerance. And eventually, if someone tries to stop the behavior, then you start experiencing withdrawal symptoms. And yes, it does happen with food in some instances. So I'd like to give you just a little quick test, 14 questions, and all I want you to do is write a Y for a yes or an N for a no. Y for yes or N for a no. And I'll go through these fairly rapidly. This was used by Dr. Vera Tarman and others to help determine susceptibilities to food addictions. Have you ever wanted to stop eating and found you just couldn't? Yes or no? Ever wanted to stop eating and found you just couldn't? Do you think about food? Number 2. Do you think about food or your weight constantly? Yes or no? Number 3. Do you find yourself attempting one diet or food plan after another with no lasting success? Yes or no? Number 4, do you binge and then get rid of the binge through vomiting, exercise, laxatives, or other forms of purging? Number 5, do you eat differently in private than you do in front of other people? Number 6, do you eat to escape your feelings? Number 7, do you eat when you are not hungry? Number 8, have you ever discarded food only to retrieve it and eat it later? Number 9, do you fast or severely restrict your food intake? Number 10, have you ever stolen another person's food? Number 11, have you ever eaten food? Or have you ever hidden food, to make sure you have enough? Number 12, do you obsessively calculate the calories you've burned against the calories you've eaten? Number 13, do you feel guilty or ashamed about what you've eaten? Number 14, do you feel hopeless about your relationship with food? Now count the number of yes answers that you have. And if you have answered yes to 3 or more of those questions, you may be struggling with a food addiction. Interesting.
But Steve, when you say fast, does it tell them why it says it's good to fast? Because I fast.
No, that we're not talking about fasting for our health. We're fasting because we're so worried about what we've eaten that we think we need to fast to quickly get rid of it, and then we go right back to eating.
Guys, this has been fun again. Our time is up, so let's all stand and we'll have a closing prayer
But
together.
what do we need to do? Let's not leave them hanging.
Well,
we got to avoid those foods, and we need to seek the Lord's help with this. He will help us.
our
We
time's
had
up.
2 minutes.
Okay. Well, we need to replace old habits with good habits. I can come back and I can start right here this afternoon. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for this opportunity once again to talk about diabetes reversal and how to augment the reversal, how to make it even more effective. So I pray that you will bless each person with these ideas and bless them in their homes as they return home to put these things into practice, that they will experience a good reversal plan in their home. Thank you for hearing our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen.